Yeah, so do you remember in my first video when I said that this channel was not a pharmacy channel?
And I don't think there'll be any more pharmacy related videos on this channel for now.
And now I'm here, but today I'm not going to talk about pharmacy, other than the fact that yes, I am on call, yes, I might get bleeped. Any bleeping sound now, it just gives me so much anxiety. I was getting the elevator today after work, the doors were shutting and it was going beep 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 beep, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a bleep, I'm getting a bleep. So I just want to apologise beforehand in case it does go off. Here it is. Let's just pray that this does not interrupt me from filming a non-pharmacy video. So hi, today I'm going to talk about questions that you should ask yourself when you're single. Okay, so I was feeling like the winter air, you know, like that crisp, creepy feeling of like coldness that just comes over you when you can feel winter coming. Well, then it reminded me of my trip to Norway last year, which I will link in the description below, but basically that was the first trip that I ever took by myself, and let's just say a lot has changed since then, but that I did remember, it was about a year ago that I went on holiday by myself, and like, what have I learned in that year and what can I share? And then I remember that I filmed something to myself while sat down in the botanical garden in Norway, and I'm just going to share that right now.
It is 2019, 25th of October, 3:06 p.m. and I'm currently in Oslo, Norway, in the botanical gardens. So I've spent a lot of the latter part of my life in a relationship. I was in a relationship for 4.5, pretty much 5 years. And then to kind of, I guess, attempt to move on, I was in a relationship for another year. And for the first time in my life, I am single, I guess, and I'm not looking at all for anyone. I was at the beginning stage of the breakup, just like thinking, oh my god, I'm alone, I can't be single. But then I got used to it, and slowly I started to realize I really needed time to get to know myself. I'm not gonna have time to do that really as much, say if I get married or have children. So I think right now at 26, it's such a good time to get to know myself, get to know what I want, get to know what I want for my future, and really just think about how I can be the best version of me. And that's what I'm about to do. Dear future me, I think this is a good year for you to spend alone. You've been in a relationship for a long time. You've not been alone for a long time. And I think you need to learn how to be alone, how to be independent, and how to appreciate having someone else. And that can only come through the painful process of being alone. I know it's awful, and sometimes you feel lonely, sometimes you feel sad, and sometimes you feel regret, worry. I know that if I watch this in the future, everything is going to be okay, and hopefully I will do the best I can when I meet the love of my life.
So yeah, that was a video that I filmed to like dear future me, to myself. And it did make me realise like that I have learnt a lot. And as much as you learn in relationships, I feel like you also learn when you're single. You know, the 20s is a weird time because some people are engaged, some people are single, some people have just come out of like really super long-term relationship breakups, some people are married, some people are pregnant, some people have children. And so everyone's at different stages, and it's so easy to like compare, I think, where everyone else is and where you are. But I just feel like these were a good set of questions that I did ask myself in that period of time. So I thought I'd share them with you. Okay, the first question I want you to ask yourself when you're single is, who were you and who do you want to be? Who were you in the past, and like what things did you do that you maybe weren't so happy with? And who do you want to be? Like, you have to visualize who you want to be. And you can do this completely without the influence of someone else. And I know that you shouldn't really be influenced anyway, like you should have your own mindset and thoughts and whatever. But you can't deny the fact that in a relationship, you do take the other person's thoughts into consideration. But when you are single, you literally have this time to think about who you are and who you want to be. What are your values without the influence of someone else? When you're on your deathbed, when you're 80, like what do you want to think back on? Do you want to think, oh yeah, I mean, I don't really know why I achieved that? Or do you want to think, actually, I don't have any regrets because I managed to do everything that I wanted to do? Okay, the second question is, what are your pillars going to be? I started to use this word when I started to build myself up after a breakup. And I guess I have 6 main pillars. The first pillar is my family, obviously. And the second is my friends. And I think I heavily relied on friends a lot during the time that I was single because my family's all over the world, so I don't get to see them. But my friends are here in London every day, and I like threw myself into my friendships. The third one is job. I didn't realize this, but job actually plays such a big role in who you are. And I didn't know this until I was in a job that I didn't like. So I always thought like job's a job, whatever. When I was in a job I didn't like, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this meant so much to me. The fourth pillar is having a hobby. So for me, it's YouTube, it's reading, it's writing poems, it's doing my online journal, it's painting. So what is a hobby that you can find? Number 5 is the gym. So obviously that contributes to both your physical and your mental health. The 6th pillar for me was church. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but my mum has always said like, even if everything fails, you have God. And so that's a pillar that I know will never crumble, and that mentally really helps me. So those are my 6 pillars. And obviously when you start dating or you get into a relationship, that person also becomes your pillar. But I think I had the habit of making that my main pillar, and that is where I went wrong. I think it's really important to strengthen all of your pillars equally so that if one goes down, you still have the rest remaining. I just feel like a relationship can be the riskiest pillar because you can lose that pillar and it's not as easily replaceable. For example, you can lose your job as well, but then you can find another job. Whereas a relationship can be your family, your friend, your job essentially, and your hobby all at the same time, but also you can lose it. I would say really think about what your pillars are and build those pillars up so that when the right person comes along, you're in a much better place and you can just, appreciate that person. And the pillar is like an extra nice pillar rather than like a heavily dependent one which you're like clinging on to. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, why are you so afraid to be alone? Some of my friends ask me this and they'd be like, yeah, you need to go to a restaurant by yourself. You need to be able to go to a park and read a book by yourself. You need to be able to be sat in your room by yourself and like do stuff by yourself. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to really do that. I've never really had to. I've always had family, or I was in relationships for a long period of my life. What helped me is to just face that fear. So then, like I went to musicals by myself. I booked comedy shows by myself. I went on holiday by myself. That made me realize, you know what, I can do it and I can be alone. And once I faced that fear head on, that was when I realized, yeah, I think I'm ready. Also, I feel like a really important point that I want to add in there is that you can be lonelier with the wrong person than by yourself. And this is one of the cases where, when people say like something's better than nothing. No, in this case, nothing is better than something. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, are you actually ready for a relationship? Like, have you healed? Are you ready to jump back in again? If you are, also know that it's 2 people. So I feel like once I healed, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I quickly realized actually that it doesn't matter that it's just me that's ready. Like the other person has to be as well. And I know that sounds really obvious, but when you work on yourself and you heal and everything and you become ready, you just think, okay, yeah, like everything's gonna be solved now. But you can then fall into the hands of the wrong person who might not be ready yet. And in that case, like that's when it starts going like downhill, I think. So just ask yourself if you're ready, but also understand that it's not just about you. It's about the other person as well. Okay, so what is your end goal when it comes to a relationship? So right now you're single, but then if you think about it, what would be your end goal? Like, is that to have a family? Is that marriage? Is that to be with one person for the rest of your life? Like, what is the aim here? Do you have an aim? If you don't have one, that's cool. Do you even need one? And I think in that time, I just really defined like what I want and what marriage would mean to me, like whether I actually believe in it, and just in general, like my end goal is to be with someone for the rest of my life, but then mainly like it's to respect them. Okay, so what are the ways that you can meet your own expectations? So I was told that I was high maintenance and that I had a lot of expectations, and I guess I did. I used to think, okay, like why isn't this guy like picking me up, or like why can't he take me home, or why can't he do this, or why can't he do that? And during the whole time that I was single, I basically just did all of that stuff for myself. So I would make sure that I got home safely myself, and that I always set my locations to like my best friends and my housemates, and I was like, this is where I am. And now, like, if anyone does anything for me, I guess now it's just full on genuine appreciation. And that comes from the fact that I decided to meet my own expectations myself instead of putting it in other people. So what makes you happy? And I know it sounds like a really generic cliche question, but what do you end up gravitating towards? What is like the moment when you're doing something and you think, oh my gosh, I actually really enjoy this, or you're very happy? Like find that and stick to it. You're responsible for your own happiness, not anyone else. Like no one else can make you happy. And I don't know. I know that people can make you happy and the people can make you happier, but also I think the small day-to-day happiness that you find in little things comes from your actions and the things that you look for. So find little things throughout the day that make you happy and then make that decision. And I know it's not going to work every day. Like I have loads of days where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't be bothered, or I'm not feeling good, which is fine. But also just as long as you don't place that burden in someone else's hands, I think that, yeah, it's all good. Okay, are you going in cycles with the wrong person? Are you going round and round and round and round and round in circles with the wrong person? And if that's something you're in, my advice would be try and get out of it sooner rather than later. But also, if you don't, then learn to forgive yourself. You should use this time to forgive yourself. Instead of thinking about all the stuff you did wrong in past relationships, or like why you're single, or like why you can't meet the right person, or whatever, and all that stupid stuff, just think, okay, I didn't know what I do know now. And from now on, I'm going to do it like this. I guess this year I wasn't so much about the love yourself thing. Like I do love myself, but I didn't focus necessarily on that as much. I focused more on, okay, how can I forgive myself for my past mistakes? And how can I ensure that I don't make them moving forward? And lastly, instead of thinking about what you can get from someone and like a tick box exercise and what the guy should be like or the girl and like what you want from them, think about what you can give. If someone was to look at you and just say like, oh, what's this person bringing to the table? Like, what can you bring to the table? What can you give to other people? And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of just love either. I think we forget that romance can be found in friendships and in family. Yeah, like last year I was giving like Valentine's cards to my friends. Instead of thinking about like, oh my gosh, like what can I get from this, like people, like what can I get from a relationship, whatever. Now I'm like, yeah, like what can I give and what can I give to the people around me? And all of the whole being single process, like it's not the nicest time, but it also makes you really realize like what are the odds of two people equally liking each other? Because if you think about it, in this day and age, like it's so easy to just like sack things off and say no. And sometimes it's like one person likes someone more than the other, and one person's not into it, or like one person's ready but the other person's not. And like, there's so many factors that go into making something work. So when it does work, I guess having that time alone really, makes you appreciate the slim chances of that instant moment something is going to work. Okay, my last point of advice that I'm also giving to myself but want to give to you is that the work does not stop. Like just because you find the right person or like get into a relationship or whatever, it doesn't mean the work stops. It's important always to like reassess, re-update the system, like keep going with your pillars, keep strengthening those pillars, don't slack. That is what I want to share, and just give it your all. After all, at the end of the day, what more is there to life than love? So I hope that you enjoyed that video. I know it was completely away from pharmacy, but I have a couple of friends who are going through some hard stuff right now, and I also just wanted to reevaluate myself. What have I learned in that year since Norway? And that was it really. So I hope that everyone is doing well. I will see you in the next video.